is better than the day of his birth. How did this be so? King Solomon explained, when a human being is born, all rejoice. When he dies, all weep. But King Solomon said it should not be so.
I have no idea.
Rather, at one's birth,
Why it wouldn't work.
no one has yet any cause to rejoice. For no one knows what is the future of the day, what will be the development of his intellect or of his soul, and by what works will he stand. Whether he would be a righteous person or a wicked person, whether he was good or evil in the world, whether good or evil will befall him. But when he dies, then all ought to rejoice that he has departed reading of good and has gone out of this world in peace. King Solomon said that this may be likened in a parable to two ships that set out to sail upon the great ocean. One of them going forth from the harbor, and one of them returning to the harbor. And everyone was cheering the ship that set out from the harbor and rejoicing and giving it a joyous send-off. But over the ship that came into the harbor, no one was rejoicing. There was a wise man there who said, I see a reason for the very opposite conduct to yours. We ought not to rejoice with the ship that is going out of the harbor, for no one knows what will be her fate, how many days she will have to spend on the voyage, and what storms and tempests she will encounter. But as to the ship that has arrived safely in port, all should rejoice with her, for she has returned in peace. A lesson that comes to us from the parables of King Solomon as we sit and we remember and also celebrate a life. Richard was born in Whittier, California. 1940. And there were many, many chapters to his life, and we'll talk a little bit about them in just a few minutes. But as we think of his life, and as we remember him, we come to the idea of comfort. Comfort for his soul as it makes its journey to a world beyond our understanding where his soul will exist with God. And also comfort for his dear family and his dear friends. In many religious traditions, we find comfort in the words of the book of Psalms, and so we share from the book of Psalms down. From the 121st Psalm, we hear these words, I lift up my eyes to the mountain. What is the source of my help? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. Of all of the Psalms of comfort, perhaps the most well-known is the 123rd Psalm, a psalm that cuts across many religious traditions and speaks to us of God in the role of a shepherd, watching over us, protecting us, and bringing us comfort. Its words are these, a Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me to lie down in green pastures. God leads me beside the still waters. God restores my soul. God guides me in straight paths for God's name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You've anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. When we remember When we think of a loved one, we think of a friend who has died. And we wonder, how is it best to remember them? Is it best to remember Richard from the jobs that he had? Is it best to remember Richard from his musical or dancing talent? I know I will certainly always remember his smile every time I saw him. But when we grieve, when we struggle with that grieving, how do we go about finding how we remember? There's a beautiful poem that speaks to us of exactly this idea. It says this: when I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around others and give them what you need to give me. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands and souls touch souls. You can love me most by sharing your joys and multiplying all of your good deeds in the world. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not on your mind. And when you remember me, remember what we have all been taught, that love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. And indeed, that's how we should remember. We remember Richard. We speak a bit of his life.
Recording in progress.
As we said, Richard was born in Whittier on December 2nd, 1940. He served in the military. He lived in New York. He lived in Germany. He lived here in California. And we're going to hear a little bit of his life now. As we remember, it's important to remember this, that we can't share every story of his life. How do we share a story of nearly 84 years in just a few minutes together here online? And the answer is that we really can't. But we can begin to share the story. And I hope and I know that since Richard's passing, many of you have shared stories of his life, short stories of your interactions with him. And so today, we share some stories, but I hope in the weeks to come, and in the months to come, and in the years to come, that all of you, every one of us online, will continue to share those beautiful stories, because it's in the stories in which we are able to truly remember. And so we'd like to begin by inviting Richard's brother, Rudy, to share some words with us. So Rudy, we're going to let you unmute yourself and perhaps turn your camera on, and we will we'll hear from you.
Is he doing on here?
Whatever he wants to do.
How do you have to mute?
You want to do it from there or your tablet?
I can try to do it from here, but while I click it, am I on?
You are on.
Can you hear me now? Is that what I'm asking?
While Rudy's coming on, we'd like to ask everybody else to please make sure that you keep yourself muted so that we'll be able to hear. Rudy, do we have you there?
You can just come up here and talk, Rudy. I'll turn the volume off.
Where shall I be?
You can just stand here. Can you hear us, everyone?
Okay. Robert, you're a little soft, but maybe if Rudy gets a little closer, we'll hear a little
Okay.
better.
Just stand up
Can you hear
here.
me now?
We gotcha.
All right. Well, let me just start with a little background. I mostly know our brother Dick from elementary and middle schools and high schools, because that's when we were mostly together. And I just did a bit about background. We all we're five boys. I'm the youngest. I'm the fifth boy of Mary and Roy Contreras. And my life started with that family in South Central Los Angeles. And we live 2 blocks from Fremont High School on San Pedro Street. And I just noticed before that my parents moved into that house on San Pedro Street. They started out in an apartment on the opposite side of Fremont High School, in an upstairs apartment, small upstairs apartment that still exists. I just saw the picture of it on Google recently. And so, and even our original house is still there. When I started kindergarten, Richard and I are 4 years apart. He's born in 40, I was born in 44. I'll be 80 next month. And our oldest living brother will be 90 next month, Robert. In between Dick and I is Raymond. So Raymond Contreras and McLean. And those were who I spent most of my childhood years with. When I started kindergarten in 1949, our first sister was born, Renee, and 4 years later, our second and final child of the family was born, Lisa Contreras. When I was in kindergarten in 1949 again, Richard was in 4th grade, and Raymond was starting in 2nd grade. We went to the same 75th Street High School right near the 77th Police Precinct, which we didn't have to visit very often. Fortunately. But we used to hear its name mentioned on the Dragnet radio series when we listened to the radio back in the 40s. The house was a 2-bedroom house, and I'm still not sure how we all, 5 boys, and our Nana, who was my dad's aunt and my mom's godmother, simultaneously, how we lived in that 2-bedroom house. My mind is kind of fuzzy on that, other than we had a bunk bed in our parents' bedroom, and then there was one other bed. And so I presume that 4 older boys were in the other bedroom, and me, and I believe Raymond, before he got promoted to that bedroom, was sleeping in the bunk bed with me also. Well, I do remember. Eventually, so with our sister coming along, then we had, we added two more bedrooms in the hallway and a bathroom with a shower. So then, 2 boys got 1 bedroom, Robert and Roy, the oldest 2, and then Richard and Raymond got the other bedroom. I moved into the other bedroom, and that's the way that worked there. Then, when the oldest boy moved out, then I got promoted to the room with my brother Raymond, and my brother Robert. And so Raymond and Dick shared the same bedroom more than anybody else, shared bedrooms together. So I think they were the closest. And they were 2 years apart in school, but somehow, I don't know how, Raymond, you skipped the 4th grade, and Mrs. Jorgensen in the 3rd grade, and you skipped the 4th grade, so it was then 1 year behind. So then they were in the same junior high school together, and then in the same high school together. When Renee joined our family, as I already said, Raymond and Dick shared that same room. My memories of school were that Dick started playing the trumpet when he was there, and then when I was in about the 2nd or 3rd grade, I started playing the clarinet. I didn't continue with the clarinet, but Dick, as you'll probably hear, continued playing the trumpet for quite a while. Our dad and his older brother were both musicians. They both had their own bands in the late 30s and 40s. And so there was some musical talent that didn't filter down to me. One memory I have of Dick with regard to his musical talent was when our school was having some kind of a Christmas party, and I really don't know what it was for because it was off campus, but I remember there were teachers there and parents there, and Dick and I were there. And he was invited or volunteered to go up and sing some Christmas carols with the musicians that were there. And he sang, I remember specifically, White Christmas, and maybe a couple other songs, and I was so proud and I was proud. And because one of the teachers that I admired at the school, but had never been in his class, he was a sixth grade teacher, and I wasn't in the sixth grade yet. And I was looking forward to being in this class. Anyway, he came over to us and he gave Dick such a beautiful compliment about his singing and his talent, his composure, and just the cheerfulness and sincereness of the way he affects people when he sang. And I still remember that like yesterday. So I first was by. Well, when he got into high school, he was still playing the trumpet, playing the band, had the school band. Just saw a picture the other day where he's in the band, and they are at a junior high school doing a concert for the junior high. He was playing. He joined my dad, who played in. My dad, as I said, was a musician and had his bands earlier. And during the summers in Los Angeles County, we had something called the traveling circus, and they went around from the various parks throughout the summer, 3 nights a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and played and performed. Had a circus show, lasted about 90 minutes, 3 nights a week. And my dad started out with it by himself. He was the drummer, and then Richard started playing in that band probably the last 2 or 3 years of high school, and they both enjoyed it so much. And again, he's so talented, so generous with his talent, so generous with entertaining people, which went on to his time in New York after he got out of the Army. And got into acting there in the Army, got in the acting there in the Broadway area. I remember when we would be at breakfast having our coffee, milk and sugar and toast, and getting ready for school, the three of us, Richard and Ray and I. And we'd be sitting there, and about 8:30 in the morning, they would raise the flag at the high school. Dick was the reveille player, and he'd be sitting there at 8:29. He'd be running out the door, grabbing his trumpet, and according to Raymond, he would start blowing his trumpet and start raising the flag while he was running down the street to the area. And that happened. That was almost a continuous thing. It was a delight for us. In school, my memory is that most of Dick's friends were what I guess they call now, or have called now, nerds.
We call them nerds.
I can remember some of their names, but no, I'm pointing out that they were a group that didn't get into trouble. They were a group that liked to be with each other. They liked to concentrate on their schoolwork. They liked to concentrate on their music, and they liked to smile a lot. Because Dick always was smiling. So he played in the band in the summers for the traveling circus with our dad, and then the last year of after school that summer, I think we were probably we weren't rich. We always had a place to sleep and a place to eat, but I know sometimes they didn't tell to us about it, but sometimes our parents probably were in a little bit of a financial pinch. Dick went to work with my dad that summer. Every day. To help with the finances. in the Army. I was going into the 8th grade. He went into the Army. 9th grade, Raymond was right behind him 1 year now. He went into the Army. And somebody else might be able to tell you about some of his escapades there, but I do know that he played the trumpet, went to Germany. He liked it in Germany. He wanted to stay an extra year if he could stay in Germany, and they said he could. And that was kind of a good choice on his part because shortly after he volunteered for the extra year, President Kennedy gave everybody an extra year, so he kind of got ahead of the mandatory, and so he actually probably got out earlier than he would have anyway. So then he and Ray got out of the Army the same year that I graduated from high school, and then Raymond took me down to the recruiting office. Signed me up for South Korea. Thank you, Raymond. Now, this is not a bad thing, because as I look back at my life and I see all the places that God changed my life and guided my life, turned out that that's when South Vietnam was getting kind of hot. And because I had chosen, because Raymond chose for me to go to South Korea, I was, that was also considered a hardship tour. So when it was time for me to go somewhere else, they gave me a choice. I could go back to California, or I could go to South Vietnam. I chose Southern California. Thank you, Raymond. You might have saved my life. So Richard went to New York, or he stayed in New York. He got out, came home to visit, but he remained in New York, started working, I believe it was MetLife they worked, and lived there right in Manhattan, Stuyvesant, which I once had an opportunity to go there and visit, but he wasn't home. Anyway. That's the way it turned out. Anyway. Well, in New York, I know that he did some play acting, and I don't know exactly what story it is, because one of my family members told me that he was an understudy with Raul Julia, but Richard told me directly that no, he understudied for Ricardo Montalban. And so that makes me wonder, is it possible that Richard could have been the Star Trek Khan? In 1981, I met my wife. We got married in 1984. We came down. Richard had already come back to Southern California. We came down to Southern California to visit, and we discovered that he had met a girl named Sarah Ann. And the amusing part of that was I was riding around with Ray, and I forgot who else was with us. Dick wasn't with us, but Ray and somebody else was with us, and we were going somewhere. And Ray and the other person were talking about how this Dick and Sarah Ann got together, and they were pointing out that they had recently just met, but they sure acted and were very familiar with each other a lot more than you would think two people that just met each other. And I don't really know the whole story, but it turned out to be what Richard was looking for, and I think he's had a wonderful life. And he was telling that directly the last few months of his life. He was telling us how grateful and and blessed he was for having a wife. And I've always loved that we have a large family. I've always loved all my siblings, all my uncles and aunts, all our cousins. I believe we all feel that way. And I'm an emotional guy, so excuse me, but I'm just so proud and blessed to have Richard as our brother.
Rudy, thank you for such beautiful words. I know that Richard would be very touched to hear your story, and I know I can see from the faces of the people in the room where all of you are gathered, the beauty of that story as well. We want to talk about another area of Dick's life, of Richard's life. We have Bill on the screen with us here. We'll ask him to unmute and to open up his video as well. We all know that not only was Richard quite musical with that trumpet, but also with those feet and the rest of the body moving across the dance floor. And we know that Bill was part of the friend group of dancers and such. So Bill, we'd like to invite you to share a few words as well.
Okay, can you hear me?
See?
We've got you. Bill, are you able to turn on your camera so we can see you as well?
Yeah, which one is that?
Right next to where you turned on your audio, you can turn on your camera as well.
The audio popped up.
Here, I'm going to put a little thing on your screen that you can click on now. Hopefully if you click on what I just put there, that'll get you up there.
Hey, Bill.
Great, thank you, everybody.
There you go.
I'm with Nancy and Joe Watson also, and my wife Mary. If you can see her, she's sitting right there. Joe and Nancy, I guess you can see us, most of us.
Yes.
And the four of us formed probably 1/3 of a group of people that hung out with Richard and Sarah for years. And it was kind of centered on our dance club and the Troubadours, but Mary and I came late to that, but it also just centered on the social activities that we had together at the dances we went to, the Elks Lodges, in the movies. We just had so much fun every week practically, and we enjoyed their company so much that we were just so devastated when Sarah passed, and then Richard. This is hard for all of us to take because we had such good memories of Shelley and Rich Gardner and also who else was there? Jerry. Yeah, well, Jerry's. But it was a real tight group. Dennis said, "Oh yeah, that's who we had." It was like a Saturday night ritual. Not every Saturday night, but enough in the month that we just kept the love and the fellowship going. And it always ended up at Keno's for some reason. And we had to take 2 booths after a while. But we would close the place up after going to a movie, and then after we weren't doing that, we were at a dance someplace. But and then a lot of times we ended up at Richard's house with Sarah and Richard, and Rich and I got into some routine of watching some late night comedian. I think he was a Brit. That we almost made trips to each other's houses so we could see that when we weren't all getting together, making trips to see Mad Men, which was also big at the time. But we had these side gigs, I guess, that just kind of kept the group together and always interested and always interesting. And it was just a good time. And we're so grateful that it lasted for as long as it did. And Richard was kind of like the center post and the instigator and the participant And everything else he would want was Sarah right there with him. It was a good group, and it was one of our social highlights of our lives at that time. So it was something else. And let me add also personally, I have 2 or 3 really good best friends. You never just have one good best friend. You always have a couple. And Richard was unique in that one compared to me versus other good best friends. He had such a deep learning. He was thoughtful. He was a conversationalist once you got him going on any topic. And as long as we avoided politics, which we did, not that we had to, but we just never took measure of each other on that kind of stuff. But we were always had great discussions, and I had great discussions with him right up to the end. So, you know what? Yes, and he was well read, and we liked the same books. Mary just reminded me. And I think Nancy has a story she wants to talk about with the dance group, the Troubadours.
Yes. Well, first of all, Dick knew the nightclub two-step, like, it was amazing. And Joe and I did it as well, but Dick was the pro. So Shelley was always trying to grab him for the for the nightclub two-step, but I always got the chance to as well. Anyways, one time, I'm just going to tell you this story. One time our dance teacher, Cliff Gawicki, he was a retired sports reporter for the, I can't remember what paper, but a very famous paper. And he was our dance teacher. And anyways, he had a girlfriend, Cliff did, and he had a surprise birthday party for her. So one night, we were at the party, and Dick told me, he says, yes, he said, and I can't remember her name, but her son asked me, well, how do you know my mom? And Dick told me that he said, well, she used to clean my house. Oh dear. Anyways, I'm a sign language interpreter, and there's a sign for being gullible, and that's me, and it's swallow fish. And I said, oh, Dick, you didn't say that. And then he started laughing and said, no, I didn't. Anyways, he was always, kind of testing me with different things. But it was a joy in our life to be friends with Dick and Sarah Ann. They just were so dear to us, and all of you and in their family are dear. You're all dear to us as well. So, but anyways, God bless you all. That's my story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for including us. Again, we loved him so much, and we had such great times in our lives being together with him and Sarah, and appreciated the time we were invited to your sister's, Richard's sister's house. I think we went a couple of times. And, yes, and it was nice to be involved and included in his family too. And we'll miss you if we don't see you again, but I hope we do see you again sometime. So, Rabbi, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill, and for all of you who are gathered over there at the house as well for sharing some stories with us. We know that in the last chapter of Dick's life, the dance crew there was very much a big part of who he was in that chapter of his life. To talk a little bit more about from the family perspective as well, we'd like to invite Robert to come and talk. Robert would be Dick's son-in-law, and also, just so there's no confusion, also my brother. I'll let you share a few stories. We're going to share your screen with everybody as well.
I think we're on. I'm going to step over here. Where Rudy was? Oh, there we go. Sorry about the shine. Or you didn't wear your hat either.
I didn't
so.
wear my glasses either.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. I'm gonna cheat on you, and I'm an emotional guy like Rudy. So please pardon me in advance if I get a little teared up here. So Richard was a part of my life for 31 years, and some of the people in the room, his family, I've known actually longer than I knew Richard, which was really weird when he became part of our family. He almost always had a smile on his face, like everybody said. He had a great sense of humor and a wonderful laugh. He was loving to my mother-in-law, Sarah Ann, my wife, Mary Ann, and his two wonderful grandchildren, Lily and Kate. But when I really got to know Richard was after Sarah Ann passed away in October of 2020. I spent most evenings at Richard's watching sports, a few movies, and a lot of crime dramas. I think he had 1,100 and something of them saved at one time on his Dish Network. Yeah, no joke, guys. It was pretty, a lot to delete at one point. He told me a lot of stories about his life. Sometimes I believed him, and other times I wasn't sure if he was telling a few tall tales. In October of 21, Richard had a flood in his house in a garage, and as many of you know, Richard was a collector. When I say collector, I'm pretty sure everything he ever touched.
It was in the house.
As a matter of fact, here's something we found today, going through some stuff. This is from junior high school when he was in a father and son picnic potato race. With his dad. So yes.
Is that third place?
Yeah. I don't know. I'll let you take a look at that and see. But third place. Yeah. Today we call that a participation award. So his garage was packed with boxes and crates and totes and trunks and just piles, and a motorcycle. Ray, you remember the motorcycle probably pretty well. 81 Goldwing, if anybody is looking for one, I have one for sale. You just have to get it in gear. So when he had this flood, I never thought what might be in them until we had to get a clear path for the people fixing the damage in both the garage and in the house. So we made a plan. Richard sat in his recliner, and we would bring him a box or two at a time to start going through. What we didn't realize was that each box was actually a time capsule of his life. Every box had pictures or awards he was given, letters of achievement from employers, and so much more. He would sit there with a smile, enjoying the memories. Something good, came from that flood. We cleaned his garage up. The stories he told me suddenly added another level, and there were no tall tales. Except for the one when we were at the bank with him, and he told the bank manager that he was a long-range sniper in the Army. So we found no proof of that, just his trumpet, but we'll go with that. Richard, whatever you believe. So one of the documents he found and read to Mary Ann was what I, until today, thought was something he wrote as the story of his life. I found out today that it was actually written for his nephew Darren for a school project back in 2000, which was really cool to tie the ends together on that one. And so it was really interesting to hear. We didn't know when it was written until then, so there was an end to that story, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But thank you for sharing that, Darren, because it was really cool to put that together for all of us. So he called it As the World Turns. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's long. Because Richard was not short-winded, right, when he told stories. So it just started with this. My name is Richard Felix Contreras. I was born in Whittier, California on December 2nd, 1940. My life has consisted of several individual chapters, each marked by a different occupation and lifestyle. And when I read this, I knew all those boxes that we were opening up, all those time capsules, was his story of his life. We were just reading different chapters in a different time and in a different order. Richard spoke in this little story about his parents adding 2 rooms that Rudy talked about to the family after Renee was born, so you were the cause of a remodel. That's good. And we had to accommodate the growing family, and he talked about how he enjoyed visiting family in Los Angeles and in San Diego. He truly loved his family. Richard said that they were a musical family. He said, my father played several instruments, and my mother was a wonderful singer. My father had an orchestra for many years, the Rhythm Brothers, and sometimes we would visit some of his musical friends and have jam sessions to go along with socializing and food. My mother and I would provide the vocals, Each of the boys played at least one musical instrument as we grew up. My oldest brother Roy had his own orchestra in high school, and for a while afterwards, we used our living room as his practice studio. So, like Rudy said, Richard started playing the trumpet when he was in 4th grade, and he joined that circus band when he was 13 years old with your father, and traveled around with that. You all know that Richard was in the Army and served parts of his time in Germany, most of his time in Germany. And we found a trunk in his garage, another time capsule, that had 170 pristine cork beer coasters that he collected. So if you're interested, we can have a conversation. We still have those. It's amazing. And almost no duplicates. So he just collected that and had it in a trunk, and it was like in perfect shape. It was awesome. While in Germany, of course, and this is what Rudy alluded to, that somebody would say something, I guess I'm the somebody. He played in the 24th Infantry Division Band, and he also played with the, I don't speak German, please excuse my pronunciation, the Augsburg Symphony, the Augsburg Opera Company, and the Augsburg Staatstheater. It's like an American light opera company. He also developed an interest in jazz and started playing at jazz clubs in and around Augsburg and Munich. Soon he, as Richard put it, enjoyed a minor celebrity as Richard Felix, and traveled to Mannheim, Frankfurt, Heidelberg, Nuremberg, and Zurich to play in jazz clubs. So he truly enjoyed that time. When he returned to New York, as Rudy said, he went to acting shops and he entered into the world of acting. He landed several roles. In the paper, he doesn't say that he wasn't the lead, but we'll go with Rudy's story for now. We're not quite sure. In one of his proudest moments, he bought some property in Sag Harbor and built a house with his first wife in literally his own hands. They built it from the ground up. He talked about it all the time, so we knew about that house and saw lots of pictures and everything over time. He used his GI bill benefits, and got his bachelor's and 2 master's degrees. And he also played on his college basketball team, because why wouldn't he? Skipping ahead, I'm going to jump a little bit to when he moved back to California. I think Richard was happy to be near his family again. He became interested in jogging as a means of keeping fit, together with his brother Ray. And Ray, you can validate this or not, because I don't know. And another close friend, they began running each morning before going to work. He trained for and completed several 10Ks before he took on his ultimate challenge of running a marathon, which he did in 1975, his first one. His career in computers took off, and he landed several jobs, and that started to define who he was, this whole computer world. Building computers for many family members, and helping everybody with lots of problems. In 1993, he met my mother-in-law, Sarah Ann, and they married in 95. They began ballroom dancing together and met some wonderful friends. You heard from Bill and Nancy and Mary and team. They were called the Dancing Troubadours, was the name of their group. Richard retired in 95, and in true Richard fashion, he needed to add more things to his resume of life. He taught OSHA safety standards for a scaffolding company, worked for Liberty Tax Services as an office manager, and because he didn't like how they ran things, he started his own tax service called Contreras Tax Services. He did it better than anyone. He was great. Richard was very involved in the YMCA as a kid, and later on in life as well, in high school and after he got back from the Army. And he and his brother Ray, along with Sarah Ann, and Marie, I don't know if you were part of that or not, but joined a fitness class at the local Y to, as Richard said, hold off the aging process as much as possible. And I think it helped them quite a bit. Richard lived a full life. He found joy in whatever he did and was happy with the decisions that he made. I put together, because some of you know that we've got 2 therapy dogs and we post them on Instagram all the time, and I did an Instagram post of, and I'll put the picture out later, of Richard and Callie, our female, having a staring contest, which they did one night. Callie said she won. So, but I listed on there the things that he did in life, just to fill in some of the chapters. We talked about playing trumpet in the Army band, circus band. He was a certified scuba diver. He was a champion ballroom dancer. He got his 2 master's degrees. He was a master backgammon player, computer expert, ran marathons. He was a green belt in judo. As we said, he built his own house, certified tax preparer, rode around the country, states in Mexico on his Goldwing motorcycle. He was a snow skier, a sailor, and so much more. We could probably go on for a long time with that. but it was incredible what he did. Last year when we talked with him about moving him to hospice care, give me a second. He understood that was what was best for him at the time and would help the family provide him with the best care possible. And I don't know if they're on the phone today. I don't know if they were able to join the call or not because they're always busy, but if Kim, Tess, and Linda are on there.
Oh, yes.
Thank you for all you did for him. He told us when we had the conversation, he said to us, I live a wonderful life. When I look back at everything that I did, I have no regrets. And he ended his story that he gave to Darren with this paragraph. He says, sometimes I look at my trumpet, which still sits prominently in the living room, and wonder what if. But for the most part, especially when spending time with Sarah Ann, Katie, and Lily, I am so thankful for how wonderful my life has gone so far that I just enjoy each and every day and eagerly look forward to tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you all. We've shared some stories. We've shared some thoughts. And as we remember Richard's life, whether family growing up with him, family through marriage, family through dancing, family through music, but this group of friends and family who gather here today, as we remember, we can think of the gifts that, whether we knew him as Richard or as Dick, the gifts that he gave to us in his life. We have these various chapters, this chapter of childhood, this chapter of the army, there's a chapter of the musician, there's a chapter of the computer expert, there's a chapter of the dancer. And in each of these chapters of his life, there's really a theme that runs through each and every one of them. As we look at each of these stories that we've heard today, you see a person who always brought joy to those people who shared space and time with him. And we also see a person who walked through life in a way that is admirable. To walk through life with the idea of helping others along the way. And he certainly did that at various points throughout his entire life, being someone who was helpful to others in so many various respects, and at the same time sharing laughter and sharing joy and sharing life. We close our service with these words of memory. Exalted, compassionate God, grant perfect peace among the holy and among the pure, under the wings of your sheltering presence, to Richard Felix Contreras, who has entered his eternity. O Master of compassion, wrap him in your sheltering presence forever. May his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
We want to thank all of you for gathering with us online today, here on this Zoom call. And we know that in a couple of places, some of you are gathered together, and I know there's going to be a festive meal to celebrate his life with some of you that I see on the screen there. As you enjoy the tacos, this is part of retreats this afternoon and this evening, continue to share the stories. I often have people ask me, is it okay to laugh and smile at a funeral or at a memorial service or when we remember someone who died? And I always answer the same answer. Of course it is. Because if you laughed with them in life, you should continue laughing. And if you smiled with them in life, you should continue to smile. because the memories bring you joy. And so may Richard's memory be for all of us a blessing. May Richard's memory be for all of us a joy. And may Richard's memory be for all of us an inspiration. Thank you, everyone. May his memory continue to inspire and bless us. And may we continue to celebrate the beautiful memories that he brought for all. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day as you enjoy the beauty of all of the memories.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.